Okay, so having been to other programs as a youth and having worked at other programs before wilderness therapy, there's some medicine that Mother Nature provides that you can't get in a building. You cannot get it in four walls, and 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 there's the spirituality that inevitably comes up in people. Even I mean, Anasazi, we really fostered that, but a lot of programs don't. But even then, it still comes up. And what I have seen when you remove these people from their technology, from their addictions, from their broken relationships, from their bad habits, and the people who expect that expect them to continue to, create a mess of their lives, and you put them in this natural world, in this environment that where Mother Nature is a teacher, natural consequences. They're only responsible for whether they stay dry or get wet, or or if they're hungry at the end of the shift or not. And things like that. Man, it's amazing to me to see who these people become, to see what comes out of them. And I have heard 15-year-old kids say things around the fire that have changed my life. The insights that come and the people that they become, and they become themselves. And it's amazing to me what teenagers are capable of and who they can be if they're put in the right environment, if it's fostered. And Mother Nature and the Creator, they know what we need and they prescribe it daily, in our walking. Anasazi particularly was really just like, this is a natural walking. We don't do anything to make it easier. We don't do anything to make it harder. What comes is what needs to come. Whatever. Mother Nature is a nurturer, but it's tough love too. And we get the dose of whatever we need on a daily basis. If we need to do some nonstop up and overs or bushwhacking or rock hopping or whatever it be, if we need to get rained on, if we need for the sun to shine on us after 3 days, we get what we need, and it's not contrived, and there's just so much wisdom in it. And also, just when you start to learn, because when I first started wilderness, I was taught that the stones and the clouds and the wind and the fire and the stars and the sun and the animals and the plants, that they were teachers, and that they were symbols and metaphors, and that they would teach us. And I was like, that's some hokey stuff. But you get an ear and an eye and a heart for it, and you start to have this recognition for it, and you start to see how they are your teachers. You start to be taught, and you start to see the metaphors and to see the lessons, and you start to apply, okay, what's happening here today, and how does that apply to what happens in the wilderness of the world? How does that apply to what happens in our families? How does that apply to what happens in my heart? The way that I just responded to the rock that turned my ankle, or something along the way I'm responding to the rain, or the temperature, or the sun. How does that play out in my life in other ways? What is the lesson? What are the elements trying to teach me? And so I just think there's healing and learning in the wilderness that you just can't get in the city.
You had mentioned that prior to coming out to wilderness, you just looked out and you saw greens and browns.
Yeah.
You didn't see
Yeah.
plants. What changed for you with that?
So when we were first walking along on like my second day, we were walking along with Ezekiel, and he's introducing us to plants. Before this point in my life, I'd only ever seen green and brown. There was no personality. There were no names. There were no uses. And he's introducing us one by one to these different plants. Oh, the native people used this plant for this or that.
Give us an example.
I remember there was one that he said that they used as diapers, and or he would say, oh, here's a medicine, or this is toxic, or in this season it's food, in this season it's toxic, and just telling us all of the personality of these plants. And even that was just like they were coming alive. It was just and being introduced to this. I'm part of creation, and I'm being introduced to co-creation, to like these entities and these elements that like I was always supposed to have known, that I was always supposed to have been interacting with and benefiting from and learning from. And it was like coming awake to something, and it was like meeting my teachers.
Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe. The Primitivus Project is made possible by the generous sponsorship of Wingate Wilderness Therapy. To learn more, visit wingatewilderness.therapy.com.